We have the Ayatollah of fantasy rock and roller with us today, Adam Rank. How you doing, Rank?
They look great in person, and I just can't wait to next year where we can pack it full of 25,000.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I didn't know it was Ball Guys Day. It was being ranked. I mean, how can you lose?
This is the Dynasty Vipers Vipercast.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Dynasty Vipers Vipercast, presented by the Fantasy Points Media Group. It is the off season, so it is time to kick off season 3 of Behind the Grind. As always, join with me, Major Caldwell, Tara Roberts. She couldn't be here, but our guest this week, you may recognize her from her time on Sirius XM. You can catch her on Bettor Sports Network there, and the Dudes Do Better podcast, as well as the Lisa Ann Experience. She is the author of The Life, and The Life is back. Please welcome the real Lisa Ann. How you doing, Lisa?
I'm doing great. I love the standing ovation. I appreciate you for having me, and it's great to see you both today.
It is. I mean, I think I was on there with you and Rick Camella there on the Bettor Sports Network not too long ago, and we talked a little shop there, talked a little sports, and man, the things they do over the Bettor Sports Network, Matt Deutsch, I mean, it's been fantastic to see that rise of the company. And like the rise of the Bettor Sports Network, I mean, the Lisa Ann Experience, it's been a rocket ship in the sports industry. I mean, I don't know if there's anything that you don't do. You may be the busiest person in sports entertainment today. How many social media things did you check this morning before you even had a cup of coffee?
So it's funny, I don't check social media until I've been awake for at least 3 hours. I've realized that it's really important for me to start my day off with a very mindful approach. So I get up, I do read a little bit of news, or I'll read a chapter or two of a book while I'm drinking my coffee. As I just start to wake up, my first step is to go to the gym. I get in my workout. This morning, I got into shoot hoops for about 30 minutes. I have a gym at my building. And that brings back this childlike thing because I played basketball all through school. Then I meditate in the sauna, get a shower, and that's when I dive in. And I found that that's really helped me stay focused and not triggered through the day, because if you see something in the morning when you haven't put that step forward to fully wake up and engage with yourself and engage with the day, you can misread something. You can take a tone a different way. I find that once I've done all of that, I look at things in a very, very black and white way, where it's like, okay, this person needs to be blocked, or okay, this person just has a weird sense of humor, or okay, this person aligns with the community that I'm trying to build and maintain.
That's the healthiest answer to that question ever.
Took me years to get here. So I think I started doing this, and let's say I started really heavy in social media in 2009. I took classes. I took a class with Hootsuite. I wanted to learn every way that I could be, setting up some posts so that I could not be on my phone every day. Because as soon as social media came into our lives, I thought, well, here we are. This is global. It's 24 hours a day. It's 7 days a week. This is going to control us. And yes, there's a profit margin there for branding yourself. But I also grew up in the 70s when my parents never got a work phone call at home. If something did come up, guess what happened? Their boss waited to talk to them about it to the next day. And people had a life outside of work. And so I just didn't want it to own me.
Yeah, and how did you kind of what was the motivating factor to get you there? Like, did you just one morning you woke up and you was like, hey, this doesn't feel right, or you just kind of gradually happened?
I read a lot, and I read a lot motivational speakers, self-help books, business books, and the smartest people that I follow would say it's really important to take time in the morning for yourself before you really get into your day. And so I realized that I wasn't responding well. I didn't like how it made me feel when I looked at Twitter first thing in the morning. I
Yeah.
didn't like all of those. It's just it's like you're getting briefed with all of this weird information, and it can be a little bit negative, and maybe there's some positive, but you got to sift through it. And that's when I was just like, let's have a formula here. Let's see how it feels. And I realized I was so much better throughout the day. I could work longer, I could be more productive, and I could stay more positive by doing that.
So, Lisa, you kind of mentioned the healthy fitness habits and how exercise is important. Would you ever lock yourself into a dark hut like Aaron Rodgers has done? And kind of talk about that, because he's supposed to be coming out enlightened, no social media, no distractions, just him, a yoga mat, maybe a single or double bed, whatever that's been reported. Probably hasn't shaved in a week or two. I mean, he's disappeared off the face of this planet. Is this something you would do? And why is Aaron Rodgers doing something like this?
Why are you making my heart hurt? It makes my heart hurt that instead of being curious, people are judgmental. And that is straight from the words of Aaron Rodgers, because I myself am dedicated to Aaron Rodgers Tuesdays. Every Tuesday on Pat McAfee. I commit every moment that Pat McAfee is doing a show to listening, whether it's live or whether it's later. I'm in the book club. I read every book that Aaron Rodgers puts out. And here's what's interesting about this. I think the misnomer about the opinions that maybe people form, if you're not watching Aaron Rodgers Tuesdays, you know nothing about Aaron Rodgers, because Aaron Rodgers does not talk to the media. He has no other contacts, doesn't want to talk to anybody, and nobody in his inner circle talks to anybody. So if you want to get to know him, you get to know him by watching him on McAfee. He gives him about 45 minutes, sometimes an hour of his time, which is incredibly generous. He is a curious person about how he can be the best person he can be. So this darkness retreat is something that I would do. It is something where you are in your own thoughts. And there's times where I will go off the grid for 2 or 3 days, though I may not be in a darkness retreat. I'm not on social media. I'm not engaging with anybody. I'm not talking to anybody. And what I find fascinating is here we have a man who has enough money to do whatever he wants with his life, right? He's successful, he's wealthy, he's had an illustrious career, he has the choice of whether he wants to play football or doesn't. He just won, a beautiful crystal trophy at the Pro-Am, playing golf. He does things at such a high level. So of course, what the regular people in the world are not going to understand is what the mindset of somebody at that high of a level is. Most of us cannot relate to being that in tune with everything you put your finger on the pulse of, whether it be football, whether it be golf, whatever it may be. I'm sure he would excel at pickleball, but he's working on himself because that's a himself thing. Now, we would never know he's doing this if he didn't go on McAfee and share this. But what I've found the most intriguing, and then somewhat, in some cases, disappointing, is how people make Aaron Rodgers some sort of a laughing stock because he's trying something different. Right. And because it's something different that most people don't understand, they're more likely to judge it than be curious about it. And I look at it like, wow, this guy really doesn't have to improve himself at all, because most of us, when we get rich, guess what? We become kind of an asshole, right? We can be an asshole. We don't need to be a better person. We don't need to be enlightened. We don't need to know how to treat people. We don't need to offer our time to McAfee every Tuesday during the football season. Even when they lose, he comes on, which is so amazing. But so I would do it. I have read the books that he's had in the book club. I admire his propensity to want to continue to get into his own mind and understand himself on a level that most of us would be afraid to get to know ourselves in.
I was just gonna say, like, why are people so afraid of like looking within, or like,
it's made me dislike so many of my favorite broadcasters,
and
it's just everyone throws so much shade and
always
and the clickbait, and it's like, look, McAfee is brilliant because he's getting so much tread on just having one person on his show that gets promoted on every single show in the entire world.
Right.
But very few people have said like, hey, this is him being curious, and like, good for him for trying something we haven't heard anybody try. And I'm sure in the future, if people want to try these things, especially athletes, they're going to be very scared to share their truth with us as broadcasters. And that's not what we want. We don't want athletes to not be able to tell us more than those, like, you get the questions, you get the answers because they're trained to give those answers. Well, guess what? If we continue to bash Aaron Rodgers, and when I say we, definitely not me, because I'm a big cheerleader. If we continue, what we're going to do is we're going to limit the access we have to the real lives of athletes, sharing their truths with us of things that they do off the field or things that they're involved or interested in. So yes, I would do the darkness retreat. For sure. I know I would work out like crazy. I would do like thousands of push-ups a day. I already figured out what I would do for the 4 days, but it's really about hearing your own thoughts and shutting off the chaos. I mean, what has to be the most overwhelming is the re-entry has to be very slow. It's about an 8-hour re-entry back into the world. You slowly going to get briefed on news and things that happen. Your eyes take time to dilate. It can take 4 to 8 hours for your eyes to dilate after 4 days of darkness. So I could see myself exploring it if I was that in search of. And maybe when I get to a point in my life, I will be that in search of. And I think it's fascinating that where he is in a level of success in not only his field, but anything he puts his finger on, he just wants to know more.
Yeah, I'm kind of going through that myself, and I'm losing a lot of friends. And I tend to like talk to some of my older friends. I'm just like, why were we friends? Like you don't even sound cool anymore. Like once you start looking within self and cut out a lot of the chaos, you start to find out some things, and you start to see the true light in people, you know?
And guess what? Once that layer of your friends dissipates, the new layer will appear and they will be
Right.
people that you align with now. And it's okay that we transition and change in life. The most interesting people and the most successful people change and transition, but you can't hold on to anything that's toxic.
Mm.
And see, when I think of this darkness retreat, I cannot imagine being alone in my own thoughts for anything longer than my 8 hours. Like I picture this. I picture, Freddy Krueger when he comes into your nightmares and stuff. I picture Freddy Krueger crawled up in the fetal position in my head, scared of my own thoughts. That's kind of where I get this whole thing. Like, so
Are you
kudos to Aaron
married?
Rodgers. I'm married with 8 kids. I mean, 5
Okay, 8
grandkids.
for
Oh yeah,
real? Okay,
for
so there's
real.
that. And what about you? Are you married?
I am not.
Do
I
you
do
have a
have a
living
daughter.
girlfriend?
I have a daughter.
Okay. So
I'm I'm
I've
s- I'm
only
looking I'm looking at self right now. I'm focusing on myself.
watched The Secret.
What's that?
It's a documentary on Netflix. You can either read the book or watch it, but I want you to watch it, read it. After this podcast, I'm gonna send you a list of reading material and documentaries that I think will really help you tap into things that are circling around you that you want to grab onto. But the reason I
Mhm.
asked that about you living with somebody is because since I was 16, I've lived on my own. I've lived with only one other person. I was married. I was with someone for 7 years. We lived together. And that was in my 20s. And I've always since then lived alone. I'm 50 years old now. So I'm probably in my own thoughts more than many people because there's no one talking at me, no one
Same.
talking to me, no one in my space. So it's a great place to be once you really learn how to communicate with yourself and once you can figure things out by the end of the day instead of just getting distracted by the banter of somebody else.
Okay, I'm gonna like this interview. I see where she's going. I'm in. I'm in. Let's get it.
We got it. We got one. We
I'm
don't know
in.
more.
Let's get it. I'm in. Let's go.
Hey, I subscribe to the organized chaos theory over here. I mean, there's never a down moment. So
I mean, with 8
it's
kids, where
it's
do
it's
you
it's
find the
what it
time
is.
to have
Now
self?
let's kind of let's go down the rabbit hole here. Let's get into some of these other fun questions. There's nowhere to hide here. I mean, nowhere to hide. My thoughts are the only place to hide, right? So now, Lisa, if you were like to come out and play baseball, you're coming in to close out the 9th inning, or maybe you got into pro wrestling, what would your intro music be?
It would be Juicy by Biggie.
Yeah.
Like zero hesitation on that. Zero hesitation.
Yeah, for real. We need the
Zero.
why on that. That's a great song.
I mean, it's a great song. And I mean, I lived the life that everyone told me I couldn't live. You
Mm.
know, in my second book, The Life Back, I dedicated it. My dedication is to all of my teachers who just wrote Lisa talks too much on my report cards, right? In the 70s and 80s, growing up in a time where if you were too curious or if you talked too much, you were stunted by your own teachers who told you that that wasn't how it should go. When obviously I probably should have been in maybe an excelled program or maybe in some sort of, luckily my grandfather got me into some creative writing. But I should have been looked at as, oh, this person wants to do more than what we're doing instead of telling this person to do a whole lot less. And then when I decided to get really creative with my life, a plan that nobody thought was going to work out. which has worked out just fine. Now I look back at those same people who again came to me and said like, "Oh my gosh, you've ruined your life." I'm sure you both realize that, I don't have a relationship with my family, and the times that I've tried to have a relationship with my family, they're constantly telling me how much I've destroyed my life, but yet I'm living the greatest life I could have ever fantasized I'd live, and I still can't get it. And I get it. They're small town, they're small minded, they're small that, but that's where Biggie Juicy comes in because I know the struggle, and I'm here to talk about it, and I'm representing Biggie that way. So I would like to be a closer because everyone loves you if you're a good closer. So like people just like the whole energy of the stadium changes when you walk in as a closer. Like just going up to bat, everybody does that. Put me in 7th inning. 2 innings, no hitters, and I'm out, boom. And then you could play Tupac on my walk off, all eyes on me.
Okay, let's go.
Now you kind of mentioned about that whole creative kind of stuff, and I love the stories that you tell. So I do know for one fact, if you ask to go to the washroom, I know you're probably not coming back to the show because you're probably crawling out a window. Now, I did catch that podcast, Dudes Do Better. And I got to ask, what are some of the craziest, first off, where did that come from? And second, what are some of the crazier stories that you've had? Because I think you ask for submissions to kind of come through and you talk about these kind of stuff. What are some of the crazier stories that you might have that you could share with us on the show?
Well, I will have to say that in 2022, New Year's Eve, I put my podcast, Dudes Do Better, to rest only because I was inciting the incels. And I'm not sure if you two know what incels are.
Yeah.
Do you? Okay. And, in 2022, the FBI did release a statement that incels are our greatest terror threat in the United States right now. And since I was funneling them all into one place, I realized it probably wasn't that great idea. People are very obsessive, right? And so for the crazy stories really range from, stalkers, people showing up at your house, people getting your address, people, insisting. So during the pandemic, when the pandemic started, so March 2020, I decided to write a list of all the things that I wanted to do that I procrastinated. And one of them was to record my audiobook for my first book. So I built my master bedroom closet into a studio, and I decided I was going to record it. I had my mixer, had everything, and I was working remotely with a producer. And I heard this banging on my door while I'm in the closet. Meanwhile, I think it's a neighbor complaining that I've been reading in this closet for like 3 weeks already. And so I don't answer the door, which I would never answer the door in a building where they call up to your apartment when you have a guest anyway, because you have security for that, right? So I don't answer the door, but the guy actually left a note. So I was like, okay, this is weird. I have a lot of friends that are cops in the city. I'm going downstairs to the front desk and talk to my people at the desk. How did he get up? Was he wearing a mask? Let me watch the footage for the elevator, what have you. We find out this guy lied, flying into New York City, saying he was a nurse, which, because, you couldn't even fly into New York City at that time. We were on straight up lockdown. This was April. So the cops do locate him. We do know what hotel he's at. There's a conversation that's going to be had. Conversations had. And this guy is straight up convincing the cops that I would like him, that we're both sports fans, that we would get along really well. And the cops were like, nobody likes anybody during a pandemic. Okay? This is a do not meet strangers situation. But the fact that this person in their right mind, and what really tripped me out was, what if I was cavalier about it and opened the door?
Right.
What would he have done then? How would that have played out? And so you have this like sliding door theory at all times. I'm very diligent about my surroundings. I don't go to events without security. I'm always paying attention, but there's always that fear factor because there's an obsession, there's a fandom, and people take that fandom, way too far. I read every article about celebrities that have stalkers that get into their property because I have empathy for them. And so it makes me feel not as alone, that people are just like climbing their fence and, in their backyard or getting into their house. So that's now why I live in a full security building. And I moved from that building after that incident because I was like, I can't stay in a building where somebody can get up the elevator and knock on my door. That's just out. So much more security here. And I'm right next to a police station here as well.
Yeah, that's That's scary. I'm glad that you're wise enough to move the way you move. But
Yeah.
let's talk about little Lisa Ann. Let's talk about young Lisa. Um, in the intro you talked about playing basketball. What got you into basketball as a youth, and what other sports did you play as a kid?
So my mom was a basketball mom for Lafayette College. At the time, Butch Van Bredikoff was the coach. You may remember that name, played in the
Hmm.
NBA many years ago. His son was a coach at Vanderbilt. And my mom dated him when I was young for many years. So he was the coach and he would let us come to every single home game. So as a kid, my entire kind of fall winter schedule revolved around Lafayette College games. And college basketball games are some of the most fun games you're going to go to, right? There's just different energy. And
Yep.
so I was instantly in love with basketball. I was instantly in love with the fact that everyone's in this arena forgetting about their entire lives and just focused on this one thing that's going on, and of course then I had access to practice there and to learn more. And so as soon as I was old enough, I got signed up for basketball. I played basketball all through school.
What position?
And okay, so I'm from a small town that's Italian, Lebanese, and Greek. So
Okay.
none of us were tall. So we would go back and forth with who was the most aggressive. I was the most aggressive, so I was a perfect center. Once in a while, I'd be a point guard. Like I was the most aggressive. When we would
No,
go to
really, you
Jersey,
aggressive? No.
and I'm 5'2", right? We would go to Jersey and show up. These girls were legit a foot taller than us. Like these corn-fed girls were like so tall.
And you
And
probably
we were
gave
like
them the business, huh?
Lebanese, Greek. None of us are tall. It does not come, right? So I played all through school. I absolutely loved it because, team sports I think are so important. Sports in general are really important when you're young. They teach you how to get along. They teach you how to make things work, to learn about somebody else's strengths as well as your weaknesses. Um, Everything from a great win to a brutal loss. Your first year you play basketball, you cry in the car after you lose every game. You
Right,
cry
right.
the whole way home. You might even be crying the next morning, and then eventually you realize, like, okay, it's just a game. We can do better. I also started skiing really young, so I was part of my ski club at my school. So we would go from Easton, Pennsylvania to the Pocono Mountains every Thursday after school and get to do night skiing, which was awesome. I still ski and I still play basketball. For 1 year, we had a powder puff football league, and it was flag football, and we were terrors. I mean, we would just beat the crap out of each other. All flags would still be on waistbands. So the following year, the school said that the liability insurance did no longer wanted to have the powder puff football league, which I hear is back.
Right.
And now, but the girls aren't as aggressive, I'm assuming. My mom tried to get me to cheer. That did not last with
This
me.
wasn't your
It was
thing?
just I was just way more of a tomboy. And I felt like I was missing the game. Like as a cheerleader, you're like paying attention to cheers. And as a fan, you're watching the game. And I would
Right.
rather just be watching. Why am I standing here waiting to do something? I want to just sit here and wait for them to do something. So cheering wasn't my thing. Basketball always was. And so, sports being so embedded in my young life. My dad was a Penn State fan. My brothers all went to Penn State. And so, my dad had us on Sundays. We'd watch football with him. And whatever games were on were the teams that had the largest fan base. We didn't have Red Zone. We didn't have all the access to all of the games. So I was born and raised a Dallas Cowboys fan, and still am a Dallas Cowboys fan.
Oh, man,
And growing,
you lost me now. Ugh.
sorry, I'm not going to change. I'm not going to, because I do believe that, like, it's like the stock market. We are due for a return on our investment eventually. I know
Eventually.
it's been since the 90s, but
So wait, so
in
so who's some of your favorite players growing up? Who's some of the people you looked up to? Basketball, football, doesn't matter.
my very first professional NBA game was in 1983, and if you remember, that's the year the Sixers won it all. I was 11, and of course, wasn't old enough to figure out that that same team wouldn't win it all the next year. But that was Moses Malone, Dr. J. I mean, that was just such an incredible time for Philadelphia sports, and so those were really memorable players. Then, of course, Michael Jordan comes into our lives. We almost forget about the 50 to 100 other incredible
Right.
players, that we were watching before MJ. And then I just became such a fan that I just would watch any game, any team. When I lived in LA, went to a lot of Lakers games, a lot of Clippers games. Now I go to Knicks games, Nets games. Like I just love to go to games and I love to watch NBA.
Nice. Talk to us about a decision that changed the trajectory of your life. Oh, and
Boy, there's been a I'm
I mean,
like,
it sounds like
there's
your stories, it sound like you have a lot of, decisions, a lot of pivots in your life, you know?
a lot of pivots. I think really a good one would be meeting Matt Deutsch, who's now again my boss at Bettor Sports Network. I met him in the spring of 2013 right here in New York City. And it came about because I was doing a Monday night show on Sirius XM, which at that time it was like Playboy Radio, Spice Radio. It was like an adult radio station. And my show was called Stripper Town. And it was a great show because people would call in and tell like horrifying stories of things that happened at strip clubs. And then I would interview feature dancers that were going out of the road. And it was a perfect kind of fit for me, except it was on Monday night. So during football season, my fans that knew me, because on the road as a feature entertainer, I went to a ton of arenas, ton of ballparks, ton of games. I would look at the year and I would tell my agent, okay, I want to be in Pittsburgh this weekend because I could catch a hockey game and an NFL game. I want to be here. I mapped that all out, which was really great for me. And so my fans would sneak by my producer and they'd tell my producer whatever they wanted to hear, and they'd get to me and they'd be like, okay, here's the score of the game, here's who has the ball, here's how much time is left on the clock, because I had no TV in Playboy Radio to watch the Monday Night Football game. And so, of course, this was not working with my program director. This was not working for Playboy Radio. They did not want to hear me talk about sports. They wanted me to talk to the porn star sitting next to me and talk about her and take these calls. And so, it got to be a problem. And I think before there was a major, like, I'm just about to get fired, right? I'm getting written up. And at that time, my producer came to me and he's like, look, one of my greatest friends, Matt, had this show on Sirius XM on the Fantasy Sports Channel, and it was Playboy Playmates, and they had a fantasy football show. And he's not going to have that show this year, but I know he's looking for someone, a female voice, someone to come in and do fantasy football. He's like, do you know fantasy football? And I'm like, I don't, but I know football. I know all my idiot friends play fantasy football and they're good at it. They're not that smart. And he gave me Matt's info. And I flew to New York that next week. I flew to New
Nice.
York the next week and I met Matt. And I said, he asked me the same question. Do you know it? And right away, I could tell Matt was just a good human, just a great person. And he's like, well, look, I said, I'll study all summer. I'll do a bunch of mock drafts. I'll figure this out. He introduced me to a studio to go and meet with someone that could be my co-host, which was Adam Ronas. And it was like co-host at first sight. We're both Dallas Cowboys fans. We were busting on his co-host, Scott Engel, because I had listened to their show for a minute or two before I went in and just did not expect Scott Engel, who called himself the king, to be Scott Engel. I'm like, this is the king. And Adam loved it. And we just like that clicked. And so Matt said, okay, well, we'll start the show in September. And I realized that I really wanted to do the show from the New York studio and be in studio with Adam, but I lived in LA. So I reached out to a friend who took me around to see some apartments, and I found a little studio apartment in Times Square that when I walked into the apartment and looked out the window, all I could see was the Sirius XM building. And I said to him, this is the apartment I'm taking because I don't want to be taking the train. I don't want to be at, my show's going to be at night, 10 to midnight. I don't want to be out. I'll be just walking across the street and going, and I'm manifesting this because I wasn't even really sure if I had the show for sure yet. And I signed that lease and took that apartment. So I think, meeting Matt and having that confidence that I was going to have this opportunity, being a part of the building, like it was such a big deal to get my badge, to be able to walk into that building. I mean, Sirius is it's legendary. You got Stern, you got all this hustle and bustle and all these PR people in there, and it's so much action. And that building alone has so much going on. And I just felt like I belonged to something. And Adam and I would meet every Monday at a restaurant that was halfway between my apartment and the studio. The guy that ran the place would let us have the bar. We would have whatever, like there's a Monday night game on, we'd have that on, then we'd have hockey on the other one. Like whatever sports we wanted, we had all three TVs to ourselves. And we'd watch there and we'd go through the show rundown. And Adam really taught me how to be good as a radio host, what things were important, what injuries mattered in fantasy, let alone what injuries mattered to a team. And so I would have all these notes printed out. We would sit there for an hour and a half together, have dinner. break it down. Then we'd go into the building, get our coffees, the coffee place. There's that, each floor has its own little coffee place in the building. We would go in there and we'd set up in the studio, and I just loved it. And I still love talking sports, and I still love knowing that so many of my fans that connected with me in my almost 30 years on the road remembered having sports conversations with me, and they were on board right away. Like, oh, this is a natural progression. Like, this is just great for you. And so I would say there have been many really big turning points in my life, but meeting Matt Deutsch was definitely one of them.
That's awesome.
I love how you slid Scott Angle in there and the King and this. It kind of doesn't. He didn't really look like the King. You know what I mean? It kind of throws you off. So we were in the fantasy. I don't.
It threw me so hard.
That's all right. So we were in the Fantasy Football Expo there in Canton, Ohio, and they got a little I don't want to call it a dive bar or anything like that, but it's kind of like a little karaoke. And out comes Scott Angle, walk this way. He is karaokeing, and he is just nailing it. I mean, there's video proof of the King singing "Walk This Way," Aerosmith, DMC. I mean, it was like
he can
all right,
dance.
Scott,
I'm not gonna.
there's your crown.
He can dance too. I've seen him dance at the Sirius XM Christmas party, and I've been like, "Whoa! Like, man's got moves." Did not see that coming.
Yeah, I was thoroughly impressed. Him just getting up there and working. He's like going back and forth. He's working the crowd. I'm like, all right, here we go. Long live the King. Now,
yeah.
When we look, you talk about this, getting that apartment there across from Sirius XM radio. That kind of started that whole fantasy football kind of progression. What are some of the biggest changes between then and now that you've seen in the industry?
Well, of course, sports betting, right? Sports betting has brought us such a bigger audience and also so many more creators. The fantasy space was very small and it very divided. It was like you either covered fantasy football, you covered fantasy baseball, and maybe you covered fantasy baseball and football, but not many people covered both. Fantasy basketball is its own little tiny, and fantasy hockey and golf is even smaller, right? So there were all these like subdivisions of the fantasy sports world. And I think sports betting really made it very different, because though somebody doesn't play fantasy baseball, they might be throwing out some plays for just a baseball game or a parlay for a weekend of games. So the sports betting space has also brought in different influence of creators. I see more women being drawn to the industry. I see the industry being more diverse, which is very important. And I see, I'm finding creators on my own just by being on TikTok and by being on Instagram that I'm reaching out to and being like, hey, I love your stuff. Do you want to come on as a guest on my show? I mean, we don't need to know that they were on a major network. This could just be their side hobby. But if they're putting time into it, why shouldn't we celebrate it and bring them on and ask them, like, how'd you get so into this? What's been your biggest payday? What's been your biggest loss? We all have the same, heartache and heartbreak when it comes to winning and losing. So I've seen a lot of that change, and I've seen it become a little bit more fluid since we've brought sports betting into as many states as we have.
And I think that whole sports betting, fantasy football, it's growing and growing and growing, and we love it. But speaking of love, I need to know about the Sirius XM Radio Fantasy Love Triangle. Adam Ronis or Howard Bender. Now, I know this was a little thing back and forth there because Adam would host with you and Howard would host for you, and the Dallas Cowboys somehow got involved in this whole conversation. So I got to ask, Adam or Howard? This is a question from a fan.
Listen, it has to be Adam.
H. Bender, just to keep his name.
By the way, I had just had brunch with Adam in the city on Monday. Because I had just seen Howard, so I needed to balance it out, right? And Howard and I got to spend some time with Michael Irvin at FSGA last week, and I felt bad that Adam didn't get to go because Adam, both Cowboys fans, but it has to be Adam. Adam put so much time into developing me. I mean, I can remember being in the studio with Adam when we first started, and of course, I didn't know the art of the tease at break, so he would tease something, and I'd answer it. And then we go to break. He's like, you're supposed to wait. Okay. And so, pronunciation of players' names, there were so many things that Adam really didn't have to, but he gave me his time. And we sat down for that dinner for probably, the first 5-6 years. 5-6 years we did the show every Monday night.
So is there a interview that you've had that you went into it thinking this guy is a good guy, this guy is a bad guy. But after the interview, it kind of, you got the opposite.
Many times before the internet, okay? But once we had the ability to go back and listen to how people have interviewed other people, I will say no a lot. I will sense something about somebody or I'll ask around. I had one about 6 or 7 months ago in Florida that I enjoyed the interview while it was happening. Nothing was off-putting. Everything was, normal. They streamed it live on YouTube. I had my people watching it and taking notes. But then when they went and edited it on YouTube, they put a lot of things in the labels of the menu that I didn't like. They also cut clips of me answering questions that I had never asked. And then when I went back and watched this guy that interviewed me, he wears the same suit for every interview, which is brilliant because in the one shot, he's able to clip out a question that he never asked me and then use my answer. So, once bitten, twice shy. They've reached out to me again. Of course, obviously they're dead to me and I would never go back there, but I didn't like the way that was handled in approach. And I haven't spoken to them about it yet. They're still reaching out to me on the regular. They've shown up at a couple of my events asking why. I need to find the right words to express how I was dissatisfied with the way they worded things that were kind of degrading to other people in the industry, degrading to myself. And I knew how I felt doing the entire interview and I just didn't see it coming. So when it was brought to me of like, hey, did you go back and see how they edited that? And then I saw social media clips and I was like, hell no, I never asked that. And my assistant was like, no, I took notes the whole interview. You were
Nice.
never asked that question. So there's still a lot of shady people there. And I think sometimes there's going to be people that bring me in front of them to find a way to make me the joke, right? And then when I get there and I'm not the joke, they've got to be a little bit more creative. And it's even more disappointing when you've got to try so hard to make me look bad that you have to go and pull a clip from another episode.
What is the healthiest way to deal with that? Like you said, like you're trying to find the right way to express that. Like yeah, because you're all about the healthy choices.
Yeah, I would personally like to do it in person in a large forum at their offices in Florida in front of the COO of the company and the staff and express why and how things become inappropriate and unfair. I don't want to do it by email. I don't want to
Mhm.
do it on any sort of written form. I don't want to do it by Zoom either because I want to feel the energy in the room, because it's important to be able to stand in front of people that have wronged you and express to them how this could turn out. Now, for me, as a woman of my age, it's a non-factor. Like I was perturbed. So like a
Mhm.
month later, when the guy came to see me at an event, I was still too perturbed to like talk with him about it. So I just didn't say anything. But as a younger woman, that's what I worry about. I worry about the 20 to 21-year-old who could be devastated by something like that. It's their first time getting blindsided by something negative when they thought something was positive. So my
Right.
concern is really for the future, not for me. And I'll find a way. And it'll happen in the next 6 months. And I will have the perfect speech and the perfect statement. And I will let them know how far I went to protect them by not just blasting them on social media, by not serving them with legal documents that cease and desist. There's so many ways I could have gone about it, but I've learned that I like to first it was a 24-hour rule. I wouldn't respond to anything that annoyed me for 24 hours. Then it went to 48. Then it went to be like, you know what? I'm gonna give this like 6 months to a year. I'm gonna let this person wonder why I'm not responding to them for 6 months to a year. Once it's truly irking them and I'm completely over it, I can have a really good positive conversation. We talk so much about mental health. We put
Mhm.
mental health in ads. We put mental health on sidelines. But people are still not doing the work to
Exactly.
help the mental health of others. They're still taking digs. Like, hate to go back to it, but with the Aaron Rodgers thing, like, here's somebody trying to work on their mental health, and here's everybody trying to stab him in the back and mess with his mental health. I have athletes tell me, like, I can't look at social media. People are so horrible, and it gets in their head, and then they can't get it out of their head. So I think it's more important to be productive about it and to express, like, if you're going to be that way, then please don't mention that you care about the mental health of others.
Mm, man. Mic drop.
Well, I'm trying to find the way to segue to the next question now after that. And I'm thinking maybe a mental health advocate or a counselor, maybe up the alley here somewhat. But I mean, we've talked about everything that you've accomplished in a very short period of time in the fantasy football industry. I mean, you've worked really hard. Talking to Howard, talking to Bob Harris, they think you're one of the hardest working people in the industry. And you look at your social media platforms and everything else. You check your I've got like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and my Instagram hasn't been touched in like 8 months. So
that is a crime.
I can't
You
even
are doing
imagine
yourself
type
an
of work that
injustice.
goes into that.
God, I just
I'm
had
not a
this
social
talk with
media
Adam the
guy.
other
It
day.
kills me.
I totally understand, but it does help your content. You know, I'll tell you, when I left Sirius XM, I was doing an experiment. I loved working there, but I felt like I was in a social media black hole. And I went to my agent and I said, yo, listen, before we renew a new contract, I just have this gut feeling that I'm in a social media black hole. I'm going to back out and see what happens. Would you believe in 6 months, 6 months, I gained 1 million followers on Instagram in 6 months. That was my largest growth peak of any time since 2009. And the reason was I was sharing clips of my shows. I was sharing clips of my podcast. We weren't really allowed to do that with Sirius. They didn't give us clips. We didn't shoot anything on video. This is a generation of video feed that reads captions. It's the strangest thing, but you got to wrap your head around it. They want to read captions. They'll watch TV with captions on. You know, anytime I have a young guy at my house, I'm reading captions with this kid while we're watching TV. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I can't believe your generation. So, and we're watching shows that are rebooted that I watched when I was his age of 21 years old. So, you know, it's important, but I just like to have a really big range. I like to be that person that shows everyone how limitless we are, and that you don't have to get stuck. You don't have to focus on one thing, and that you can enjoy many fruits of your labor. I love to travel. So you see me doing travel vlogs. I went to Switzerland this year. I'm going to Greece. I'm going to Italy. I will skydive, paraglide. I will do any adventure anywhere. I paraglided off the Swiss Alps in Switzerland. It was so amazing. But like, I just like to live with a level of zest that I think would exhaust most people. But for me, it's just what I need to keep me entertained.
That is amazing. Like, what? Like, go ahead, man. I'm about to go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, you know, I'm a simple man. I want to get into all that stuff too, but you know what? For now, I'm quite happy with the entertainment I get from fantasy football. I mean, it's not much, but it's enough right now with everything else that kind of goes on. But I want to know, fantasy sports, you can learn a lot through it, right? There's all kinds of different things, and it's got some teaching points. But what has fantasy sports taught you about yourself?
Oh, man, that's a great one because there's so much. I mean, coming from the world of the adult industry and also being on the road in clubs and starting out in clubs so young, I was subjected to a surroundings of people that there's some great people, but you know, when you're working in any sort of bar business, you're around a lot of people drinking. I'm not a big drinker, not good at it. So, you know, there was a lot of weird things that I was exposed to, and I feel this sense of calm here. And I've been able to meet so many just incredibly kind people. So it's taught me how much different my life can be when I'm exposed to people that are always propping each other out and helping each other out and networking for each other and sharing information and collabing. I can remember my first year with Sirius, I probably listened to the Fantasy Channel 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? I mean, I still to this day, I know what time it is by what show is on, okay? And that is bad. My entire day, 5 days a week, I know it's a trigger. It's noon. McAfee's coming on. I'm at that YouTube. I'm watching the 4-minute countdown, okay?
That's funny.
And then right after that, I'm going to Jeff Vance. You know, I'll listen to Howard. I'll listen to Howard and Jim. But I would listen to hosts from all different networks, whether it was Sirius, the NFL Network, come on, and always say, you know, thanks for having me on. And then the host that have them on would say, well, thanks for visiting us. There was just this like level of extreme kindness and how we're all in this together and that all of us can be helping each other. And Adam, you know, gave me the advice of like, you're going to do a lot of stuff for free. And you should do a lot of stuff for free because you're going to learn the cadence of other hosts. You're going to get your name out there. This is what you're doing. And we all share our time with other shows because we want other shows to be great. And then we want them to come on our shows and be great. I have never seen such a evolved, a network that just works together in all the different spaces with all the different brands. It's the small little unity of a world. So it just taught me how much I love that. It taught me that that's available in this world if you're in the right business. I don't know what other business may be like this fantasy business, because I have genuinely met some of the nicest people in my life in this business since 2013.
No, you hit it right on the head. And we ask this question a lot on the show, and the answer is pretty similar to that. Yeah, this fantasy community is a different breed of people, man. Everyone's looking out for everyone. But
Yeah.
throughout the show, you kind of mentioned some names of people who helped you out. But give us some other people who helped you throughout your career.
So of course, Matt Deutsch, Adam Ronis.
Right.
We got to throw Howard Bender in there. Howard Bender got me to do a pie bet, and I lost, and I had to get pied. I let Mike Babchek do it from the Morning Men show on Mad Dog Sports Radio, because I was like, no one would take more pleasure in pieing me than Babchek. So I had him do it. Bob Harris, Mike Dempsey, Jeff Manns, Ray Flowers, Kyle, Drew, the whole crew that's now with Bettor Sports Network. Of course, Steve Cohen at Sirius XM. I was the replacement host for the Morning Men on Mad Dog Sports Radio. That was one of the hardest things to walk away from, because when I left Sirius, I wasn't going to be doing that. When they would go on vacation, me and Rick Kamlo would do their show, because I know Foul Nation really well. I know their listeners, their followers. It's an endless list, and I sure hope any of you out there that I may have left out when you don't reach out to me. I didn't mean to. There's just so many. Matthew Berry has been incredibly kind to me, and very helpful to me. It's just pretty much everybody you meet. Once you're in this, Stacey Stern, she's amazing. And now I have my new crew, me and Steffi Smalls, Justin, just got Lawrence Jackson. We just have this whole new crew that we're pulling together, which I really like, because we were the cool kids table at one point in Vegas. We snuck off and had some afternoon drinks while everybody else was at a panel. It was super fun. But it's endless, and just a really nice group of people. I just had a nice chat with Bob Harris yesterday on the phone. He and I will just talk everything. We'll start out with sports. Then we'll talk news and current events. We'll talk a little music, and we get a nice rounded conversation there. But just great people, and everybody's been really accepting of me. There's nobody that's been weird to me either. And other venues that I go to, like next weekend I'm speaking at a conference in Miami. And I prepare myself when I do conferences that there's going to be like 50% of the room might not be Team Lisa, and maybe like, okay, this is her. This girl did this for a living. I didn't get that from anybody in fantasy. I knew that if I worked hard, I would be accepted. And if I did the work and I put on a good show, I would be accepted. And also I learned that I listened to a lot of shows and podcasts, and I could tell when somebody isn't prepared. Right. Nothing grinds me more than if I listen to a podcast or a show and I know a player is injured and somebody says that they're playing. And I'm like, no, they were just ruled out. Did you not check before you did? So I know how that feels. I know how important it is to be prepared. And so, my best friend said to me when I got my first contract with Sirius XM, she said, you have a choice. She said, you can either be a flash in the pan and they can use you for social media, or you can be too good to fire. What are you going to choose? And I said, I'm going to choose be too good to fire. You know what I mean? I want to stay. That was 7 years I worked with that company.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, you're a very motivational person. All over your social media, you see like the midday motivation.
Quotes are important. Positive energy is important. Our vibe attracts
your
our
go-to?
tribe.
Who's your go-to?
I mean, I rewatch The Secret once a month, and I have such a relationship with the original author that when she releases new books, I get pre-signed copies. I wrote thank you letters when I first read the books and watched the documentary. I wrote so many thank you letters before, we were even like on social media. I love Deepak Chopra. I've gotten to do one of his seminars, super deep, amazing. But there's a ton. Stephen Covey's great. I read a lot, but I just, quotes are inspiring. And I think social media can be such a cesspool of negativity. Like, I don't know why. I get it. It's a free throwing ticker for everybody to give their opinion. But if you really did a survey on it, I would say 70% of the opinions are negative.
Right.
And what are we saying about our society? Are you
Right.
telling me that 70% of us are negative? Because that's not great. And look, we all have negative thoughts, but I'm not sharing them. I'm keeping them to myself and working through them. Like when I have a negative thought, I have to balance it with a positive thought. So if I say to myself, oh, this isn't going to work out, then I say to myself, well, Lisa, what if it does? And I balance it out because otherwise you just get suffocated. Your positive voice has to be strong, but it's troubling that people think that's how you use social media. That's why I
Right.
love Instagram. That's why I love Instagram and TikTok, because it's not really as much about the comments. Nobody reads the caption. It's really about the content. And Twitter, it's a caption based. Like today, I don't know what's happening, but I went on and something else is being boycotted. I'm like, I can't click on it. I see a high school, I'm afraid to click on it. I know it's going to be bad news,
It's gonna
right?
be something
But
bad always.
mostly what's trending is bad stuff, and that's not good. We've got to do better than that. We've got to share our positive thoughts. And so quotes are an important reminder for me and everyone's day, because I know their timelines are filled with negative stuff.
Yeah, Napoleon Hill's one of my go-to. Anything Napoleon Hill says is like I'm all in.
I had to laugh there when you mentioned when you're listening to the radio and someone says someone's injured who's not, and you're kind of like throwing your hands around. I do the same thing in the vehicle, and my kids give me the weirdest looks. They're like, what are you getting on with? They look at me. I'm like, but you're like, just no, Dad, no. But now you kind of mentioned these that big time boost on Instagram, that 1 million kind of followers there. I think he's got 1.9 million on Twitter.
By the way, right now I'm at 4.4 million on Insta. I'm gonna be at like 4.5 by next week. My goal is to be at 5 million in the next 3 months. So I'm
Can
working
I
on it.
borrow like $1 million? Like what's going on? Like what's going on? What's going on?
I just want to keep growing my audience. I
Yeah.
just want to keep growing. The bigger I grow my audience, the less judgment is going to be placed on every single person that steps away from the industry that I stepped away from. I'm still very connected with people. I'm still an advocate for the business. And I think, everyone's going to need a secondary career. And I'm really the first that we see out that stayed in the public eye, that is not, ashamed or hiding from, didn't change my name, didn't go underground, didn't do any of that. And, when we see how many people are involved, we realize that not all of them are making enough money to save for their entire retirement, right? Not all of them are
Right.
going to want to do it forever. So the bigger my following is, and the more people get who I am, I think the better opportunity everybody after me will have.
And I think the big thing is that with great power comes great responsibility. You've got this platform already. You've got these followers, but unfortunately, you've kind of mentioned this earlier, not 70% of followers have negative comments too, right? I mean, it's kind of, you got a lot of good ones, but there's going to be those trolls. There's going to be these other things. And kudos to you and the way you present yourself and handle yourself. Yourself in a way that's like, okay, whatever she just did, there's no way I would have handled that situation the same way. How do you handle some of those negative thoughts, those negative comments, and how do you not let it bother you?
So this year, one of my New Year's resolutions was to no longer troll trolls.
Mm.
For a long time, it bothered me. Then I went to the point where I had fun clapping back. Then I went to the point where I would say something, snarky in return. And so in 2022, at the end of the year, I was like, okay, look, you only have so much energy to give in this world. And why am I giving any energy to something negative when there's so many positive people that I could have responded to instead? So we're seeing how long I can stick with this. So what I've done this year is I just block people. I don't even mute them, because if I mute them, they can still see my page. And when I tag people like from my show, they still get their trash.
Mm-hmm.
So I have never in the past, since January 1st, I've blocked more people this year than I have blocked since I've been on Twitter in 2009. And what I just decided to do was, when I look at it, if it just gives me the ick and I'm just like, ugh, I'm just blocking you, because you know what? You're not aligning with what I want for my community. You're only going to continue to go there, whether you're trying to get attention, whether you're trying to set me off, whether you're trying to start a fight that my other followers are then going to jump in. I just don't want the trash on my timeline. So now I'm just completely numb to it. I just look at it. I know when something gives me a weird feeling. And I'm even blocking people that ask me out, because obviously if you think I'm going to say yes to a date with you, a stranger on Twitter, obviously,
What? Why
you know,
not? What?
we don't get each other. You know what I mean? Obviously, we don't get each other. So you're getting blocked too. And you may have seen yesterday on Twitter, I put out full disclaimer, like, here I am doing because my favorite thing to say back was always, sir, you must have your apps mixed up. This is not a dating app.
This is not
is
Tinder.
Twitter, you know? Yeah, you, sir. And that was my favorite. But I'm not even doing that. So I had to put out a little disclaimer. I put a thank you for listening at the end of it. But because it's creepy. Like, why do people think a stranger would want to go out with it? It's just awkward. And that was not a thing, by the way, when Twitter first started. I mean, yes,
Right.
Celebrities would slide into your DM because you were following them, but the random guy with 103 followers that has the strangest pictures up ever and still collects like dolls that are in boxes and has them all over his house, like those little Funko Pops, like, oh yeah, that's the guy. Yeah. So it's not easy, but look, but what do you have? Funko Pops? But you're married. Oh my God. We have to clip that. Please clip that. Okay. Please clip that.
No, please clip me. Oh my God, that's the greatest.
Okay,
Oh.
I'm really sorry, but you're already married and you're not out trying to get a girl on Twitter by showing off your pops, your
I
Funko
am
Pops,
crying.
right?
Oh my God.
And by the way, I stopped
They're my
accepting gifts.
adult action figures. Adult
The
action
slow
figures.
motion- Matt, the slow motion look back is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life, dude.
Ever?
Like,
By the way, I didn't even know what they were because I'm sitting back here. It just looks like baseball cards from here. Actually, it looks like
yeah.
okay, I'm sorry. That's not
let's
intentionally
keep
at
that
you, but
because
that's
a lot of
it's funny. But that's the
it's a lot of
single
Funko
guy
Pops that people that's in the it's a lot of fantasy guys
don't
that got the Funko Pop thing.
I don't accept gifts from fans anymore, but when I used to, a guy sent me a Funko Pop and I thought, okay, great, thank you. And so I'm doing the unboxings, you want to thank them properly. And then I took it out of the box. The guy was so mad at me for unboxing the box that the Funko Pop comes in. Like, I didn't know you can't. I wanted the trinkets. I had this little shelf that I was going to put them on. He was like so appalled with me. Like, oh, now you don't like. I didn't know the rule is you can't take them out of the actual box. I didn't know that, right? And now I get it because they're supposed to stack on top of each other. But a guy did hit on me last week on Twitter and did a video of like he panned across his place. He must have had 1,000 of them. And I was like, yeah, buddy, you're sorry to swear. You're a serial killer. You're a serial killer for sure. You have 1,000 of those things. That's all you have. I see lawn furniture as your kitchen table. You have lawn furniture. But that was the best look back. Oh my God, there's so many. Are they expensive? He's dying. By the way,
I don't know. I think about $15 a pop.
She said there's so many. Oh my God, this is the greatest moment of my life right now. Oh man, it's so good.
I gave you some good juju right here.
Oh my God, it's so good.
We're all about the good juju here.
It's not personal. It's just as a 50-year-old woman who doesn't want to date a stranger anyway, showing that off is not going to lure me in.
That's not the first move. That's not the move to bust.
You know what? I feel
your dogs would be better off. You live on nature. You have a big piece of property behind you. All of those things would be more appealing.
Yeah.
What I watched the other day, I feel the same way about those mannequin dolls, those porcelain dolls. Those dudes, I think
so
we're
creepy.
watching Dead to Me. Have you seen Dead to Me there with Christina Applegate?
Such a great show.
When they go to the twins room. Oh, they go to the twins room because apparently the guy got killed.
And the mom has all twin dolls. Yeah! They're all twins.
Yeah, that's not creepy.
That's creepy. You're right. That is serial killer. They don't blink, and you're like, no.
But it did look like some of those dolls were watching her. Those dolls in Dead to Me look like when she moved, they moved too. That's a great show, by the way. Great show.
I don't even know where I'm like, I lost track. Where are we at, Matt? Put me on track.
I can't believe I didn't know those were Funko Pops back there.
That's the best part.
It's all good.
I wear
that's the happiest Major's been doing a show all year.
No, but Matt is a person you can't offend at all. So it's like, oh man, my face hurts. That was the best laugh.
So, Bob, I failed epically on the podcast, but again, I do want you to clip it and use it because it's hilarious. I did call out guys that have Funko Pops without knowing those were Funko Pops behind.
No, that the slow look back though, Matt.
It's all good.
Classic. Hey, Matt, that's perfect timing right there, dude. That was comedic timing right there. But I know we're coming up
All
on an
water
hour.
off a duck's back here.
Yeah, we're coming up on an hour. What do you want to do? You want to pivot to the last question, or what do you want to do?
I just want to mention there that Lisa Ann's literally blocked more people trying to be Lisa Ann than I actually have followers on Twitter. I think there's like these all people want to be Lisa Ann, and she's blocked more of them than I actually have people following me.
Oh no, go ahead.
They scam my fans out of money.
Oh.
And so these imposter accounts, and then what ends up happening is the fan comes to an event, and I'll give you an example. Larry, the whole world knows about Larry. Larry spent over $250,000 online to purchase me as his mail order bride in America. And then Larry showed up. Now, I'd already known about Larry because he was already calling Sirius all the time, asking why I wasn't talking about being married on my show. He would email me and I'd block his email, and he'd start another one. It'd be like the wedding ring with his Dodge Ram trunk steering wheel and a picture of his creepy house where I was having nightmares that I was going to be locked in the basement. So when I went to Denver, where Larry lives, I had already alerted the cops. I'm going to an event. I know Larry's going to show up. I know Larry's going to try to take me home. That's just how this is going to go. So, of course, Larry shows up, and, I've got to have the talk with Larry in front of the cops. Like, you do understand that you've been scammed because you can't purchase a human being on the internet. Larry provided me with all the documentation. There was a fake birth certificate for me. There was a fake wedding certificate for me. I mean, Larry, this is why we need a 5-point test for you to be able to be on social media. Like, if you can answer these 5 questions, we'll let you on. If not, you're going to get scammed. So on average, I would say these scammers are making between $2.5 and $5 million a year off of my name.
What?
And yeah, last week I had a heavy one. And the heavy one, they'll duplicate my page in real time. And then they'll reach out to people privately and say, hey, I didn't want to send this message on my real page, but I'm having surgery and I can't afford it and I need this money. And people just start cash apping. And by the time I can shut it down, then the people find me on social media and they screen grab everything and they're like sending it to me. And I'm like, well, like, I'm verified on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And I'm not spending time DMing anybody. And it's on you. If you didn't go and look at my timeline, I'm on a show every Wednesday night. You can see I'm alive. You can see I don't need surgery. Like, it's on you that you fall for it. But I fight the imposters to raise awareness and to get people to stop doing this. And also, like, the guys that fall for it are the guys that really truly want to believe that I would have a private conversation. And so I was at an event in October, and a guy came up to me and he was so happy to see me. And he was such a sweet looking guy. And he's like, Lisa, it's been so great to talk to you. Did you like the selfie that I sent you today? And I'm like, buddy. And then I give my security guy, we have baseball signs. Like, that's when he has to come closer. Like, okay, we got a live one. And I grab the guy's phone. I see the selfie that he sent. And then I see this person has been in real time on Telegram, taking every picture off my Instagram and talking as me. I scroll back. I said, how long has this relationship been going on? He's like, well, like 3-4 months.
Wow.
I said, how long do you two talk a day? Oh, like an hour and a half. I'm like, oh, okay. How much money have you given to this person? Just like a couple $1,000s here or there, a couple $1,000, but I knew I was going to see you. So the more events I do, the better off I am, because these imposters, the jig is up. But the safety for me is really jeopardized because each time I go to the events, there's more people that feel they have a fake relationship with me. But I'm not afraid to have the like face-to-face, let's make pupil eye contact here and have a come to Jesus conversation. What makes you think I have an hour and a half to talk to you every day? Have you factored in that math? Like, have you thought about that? Has that ever triggered? And the whole time they're like, I just love you so much. And I thought it was you. And I'm like, okay, but check my timelines. I do a live stream once a week on Facebook. I do a live stream once a week on Instagram. I do everything I can to make you aware that I'm not on Telegram chatting. I'm like, that was a dude. Okay. A dude. And he scammed you out of money. It wasn't even a girl. And they're always like, when I say it was a dude, they're more upset than when I say it wasn't me, because they still want to believe it.
They're like,
So
at
the
least, is it another woman though? Like, at least.
They would
You're
feel
like,
better, but it's not.
it's
Hush
not.
Puppy's clan in Nigeria. He has a whole, phone rooms. Hush Puppy's in jail now, but he was the most successful. Like, he's got a fascinating story, and I cannot wait till his documentary comes out because,
Right.
I followed everything about Hush Puppy. Our paths crossed because I knew a lot of people that he knew. The man built billionaire worth out of these phone rooms in Nigeria where all they do is scam people. And it's dating apps, it's love connections. And when I went to the FBI over Larry, I did get a meeting with the FBI, which was cool. Went to the FBI in LA, and they just laughed. They're like, look, if it's less than $8 million, we don't care. And
That
secondly,
is nuts.
we do no trade with Nigeria. And all this is Nigeria. What they're doing is they have Americans in the US that get the money, they get a split, and then they send it back. And Larry was sending money in everybody's name but not mine, whether it was gift cards, whether it was bank transfers. But the poor guy gave up his retirement trying to
Ugh.
purchase me on the internet.
That's so with all that going on with the Larrys and the work and the emails and how do you find time to do these personal challenges? Like, and what's your latest one right now?
So right now I'm doing 100 push-ups a day beside my workout. So like throughout the day, I just got to stop and do like 10. Like I'll do a Zoom meeting and I'll be like, all right, after this, I'm gonna do 10 more. So 100 a day for this Miami trip because I'm, going to be at the beach. I want to
I
look
see
as
the
fit
guns
as
is gunning
possible.
right now too. So yeah,
Yeah,
you're doing a good job right
I'm
now.
not
I see you. I see
bad,
you.
not
I see
bad,
you.
not bad for my age.
Yeah.
But the personal challenges keep me connected with myself, whether it's a reading challenge, whether it's a working out challenge. And then, I'm really connected with my friends. So like I'll work really hard and then I'll take like my first day in Miami. I'm going in a day early just to spend a full day with a friend. We're just going to sit outside and talk at the beach, relax. When I'm committed to my friendships, then I don't mess with work and then I refuel the well. But I'll go like maybe 20 straight days of working every day. And then I'll take like 5 days off. I just kind of balance it all out. And, I have almost a FaceTime a day with a friend that isn't work related. So whether
Mhm.
that's in the evening or midway through the day, I think it's really important. And I have an amazing large group of friends that live all over the world. And I'm so thankful to have the connections that I have and to be a part of their lives. So that's really important to me too. I do go to bed early.
That's good. I'm a late night person myself. I do a lot of our recording late night. Then, like you said, it's the audio, it's the podcast, it's the video, it's all this other kind of stuff. But I can't quite shake this. Like I'm quite curious how many Funko Pops that Larry might have right now.
Yeah, I think Larry had to sell his Funko Pop collection
By
to
you.
buy me.
That's so crazy. I know you're. Wait, so is this in a book yet?
Did I write about Larry in my second book? I'm not sure, but
I mean, you
it's
can
been
just do
a
a whole
topic of.
book.
Oh, I did podcasts on this. Like I tell,
Yeah.
that was a lot of dudes do better with me sharing the crazy Larry stories, and also usually everybody is on a need to know basis because like. It happens every event I go to. There's at least one person that comes up and spits out to me, like I see them in their phone, and right away I say to the people that are with me, like, this person may or may not have purchased me in some way, shape, or form on the internet and thinks that they're giving me a ride home. So stay close. You know what I mean? Larry just went up to the manager at the club and said, hey, I'm taking Lisa home because I purchased her on the internet. And the manager was like, what?
But like, what part of the brain tells you that that's a thing?
That's probably the part of the brain that is incredibly lonely, that
Mm,
hasn't built a wealth of friends around them, that doesn't have the understanding of the scamming on the internet. I'll tell you, by talking about this, I recently got an email from a man who lost his wife about 5 years ago and wanted to get back out into the dating world. And he said he's so glad that he listens to my podcast because now that he's been on dating apps, he's able to see the scams and he's able to see all of this fraud on the internet. And so he's
mhm.
like, you really helped me understand because a lot of people don't realize there's a lot of scams on dating apps. Like dating apps are probably 80% scams. Hot younger women matching with older men. They only want money. It might not even be that. They're just using a stock photo of a person. And a lot of these men don't like to be on video chat. So when I ask them, like, because a friend of mine went through it not too long ago, I'm like, why didn't you video chat with this person? He's like, well, she kept telling me her phone, didn't have the capability or what have you. And I'm like, if you don't video chat, you don't know that person's real. If you're on a dating app and they don't video chat with you in the first 3 interactions, they're not real.
Holy moly. Go ahead, Matt.
And you just throw them in the friend zone. Don't even throw them in the friend zone. But I caught your Valentine's Day special there on Sirius XM comedy with Matt Rife there, or Rife, Matt Rife.
Matt Rife.
And talking about the friend zone. He loves the friend zone. I mean, it's an underrated place to be, right? He was talking about how it's underrated and this and that. So I want to kind of steer this back towards football here, a little fantasy football.
But wait, can I just say
Who is
something?
in your fantasy football friend zone?
Can I just say something about Matt Rife?
Go ahead.
That boy is so hot. He's never in the friend zone. He's just waiting for the girl to break up with her
talking
boyfriend.
about how hot guys are on this show. Sorry, Lisa. That's not the show.
I mean,
We're not doing that on this
So
show.
his after the show, I texted him. I'm like, that answer is not real for other men. Other men do. I'm just letting you just threw a curveball at me. So fantasy football friend zones, I'm going to say this year, I'm going to be really optimistic that the Dallas Cowboys bring in another receiver or a tight end, because otherwise I feel like Michael Gallup has to be in my friend zone. I don't really think he can come into a role where I'm even confident that he's a wide receiver too. I like Gallup, don't get me wrong, but he's inconsistent. I don't know. I don't want to blame it on injury. I don't want to blame it, but he has never really gotten to the point where I'm like, I truly believe in you. I look at players, you're setting your lineup. There's players you put in your lineup. You know what? You put Derrick Henry in your lineup, you don't even think about it. You put it in, boom. Running back 1, boom. You have other players that by the end of the season, you have so much anxiety about, do I play you, or is it going to be a big week for Jerry Jeudy? Because right now I'm feeling the best ball mode where it's like you're either hot or you're not. So I think Gallup's going to be in my friend zone. I think if I stay in that same world, like I'll go to the Giants. Like Daniel Jones got to be in my friend zone. I can't really believe in him. 15 touchdowns on the season. That's not getting it done. I don't think he would have done even what he did this season if it wasn't for Saquon. Now, I can't blame it on Daniel Jones because, again, the Eagles have not built around him. And yes, they did bring on players, but it seems that everybody they bring on doesn't want to play. So you have, your Galladays, your Slaytons, all of this. So there's those guys. I believe in Dak, but he needs another weapon to work off of. Russell Wilson, we ain't even in the friend zone. Okay, not even in the friend zone.
Is he blocked?
I don't care. I think this year he's going to be a block. Although I will play Russell Wilson in best ball because you want to still have some shares, right? And what I love about best ball is that set it and forget it mentality, right? You can do 100, like Mike Dempsey does, like 100 some best ball drafts. I'm just starting to get to do them for baseball because I'm going to do. I had given up fantasy baseball for Lent a couple of years ago, and I let Matt Deutsch know that I would bring it back into my regime. So I want to do a bunch of best balls. So it gets me mock drafting, right? But Russell Wilson, is he going to be that different this season? And if he is, are you going to feel like you missed out? I think he's going to go super late in drafts, but at the same time, do you feel confident? And then that's going to throw off whether you feel confident in Jerry Jeudy's success as well. I was all in on Tyreek Hill last year, and I was all in on Tua. And this year, I am doubling down. They are not in my friend zone. They are Friday and Saturday night dateline, right? They are, because they together are so good. I love what Tua did. Of course, we've got to be worried about the concussion situation with Tua. We don't know what the optimal health is for his situation. But, Brock Purdy not being able to get surgery this week, having to put it off another month because of the swelling, that's very upsetting because you want him to get it done as soon as possible so he can, get more and more downtime. And he was so good and it was so exciting. But, yeah, I'm all over the place right now with looking at, you know what else? Kyler Murray, okay? Friend zone, except best ball. I committed this season to only keeping Kyler Murray to week 7. But by week 7, nobody wanted him. He doesn't really have a long – he plays really well. He runs a lot. He's great. And then you see him and D-Hop fighting on the sideline. You're like, oh, no, we've got trouble in paradise out here in Arizona. Now the Kingsbury change. Like, there's just a lot going on there that's going to make me stay away from. So I think my best ball teams will all be friend zone players.
Nice. That's a good strategy to have. So one last piece of advice for those of us trying to make it in the sports industry. It seemed like you have a wealth of knowledge. You kind of traveled this thing, different pockets of it, and you've been around a little bit. You know what's going on. Help us out.
I think the most important thing here is to be yourself. Do what you love. If you don't, If you don't like a format of something, don't play it. Like, if you don't like head-to-head matchup in baseball and you want to do weekly total, like just do what you want to do. Stay consistent with your social media and find out who your followers are. Engage with them, whether it's lives on Instagram, lives on YouTube. I do a YouTube live every Sunday, and it made me enjoy the games. Now, it kind of messed with my teams a bit because it limited my tinker time, right?
Mhm.
But nothing felt better than having everybody in the room with, do I play so-and-so over so-and-so? And you make the right choice, and then you see their player get in the end zone early in the day, and then you find them on Twitter, and you're like, I'm so glad I told you to play him. So there's this
Right.
thing, because it builds this like fantasy family, and you start to care about other teams. You care about other people's teams more than your own when you're giving fantasy advice. You really do.
Well, you
Because
should
not
be
only
a
do
Dallas fan, but continue.
Yeah, but you really want to give good advice. And look, it's a luck of the draw. There could be an injury, there could be weather that comes through. There's so many
Right. So
variables, but
many, yeah.
connect with your following and stay connected with them, because they're really who's going to push you to where you want to go.
Great answer.
I cannot believe the Funko Pops.
It was so good. I swear to
For
God.
those out there in the fantasy world, if you want to try and pick up a girl on Twitter, do not collect Funko Pops. I mean, I think
Or at
that's
least
the main
hide
lesson
them.
that
At
we're
least hide
learning on
them.
the
At
show
least.
today.
At least
I
hide them.
swear, this entire time from back here, it just looked like baseball cards. The way the plastic is shining, it looked like the glossy finish on a baseball
Oh,
card or a football
man.
card. And I had to lean in to be like, oh, of all references, of
I'm so
all
done, man. I'm so done. That threw me off. The whole
you're
interview, I was
you're not
done after
trying.
that.
You're not trying to pick up
That
a
may have
girl
been the
on
best
Twitter.
part of
Oh.
this show. And it's been a great show.
You got to clip that up, man. That's the best. Because when he looked back slowly, he was like,
Oh, it's definitely it's the promotion.
and you're like in it too. You're like, if you got a Funko Pop, you're the devil. And he's all like, it's the best. That was
You know
the
what it
best
reminded me of?
clip ever.
That slow look. Have you been on like those Facebook shorts with that one guy and his dog, and then he like watches a video, he'll do something to his dog, and he looks at his dog, and his dog like kind of snips at him. I mean, that's kind of what I felt like. I was like doing like the slow little look, like.
No, if that doesn't get us
All right,
a
there you go.
million views, I don't want to play this game anymore. That was so funny. That was like the funniest thing to me. I don't know. Maybe I have a weird sense of humor, but I'm gonna laugh at that all day.
And you're going to laugh at it every time you rewatch the clip, and you're going to save the clip for when you need a good laugh.
Yes.
But it was not personal. And also, this is me putting my foot in my mouth, right? I should have leaned in and seen what was back there before I said it.
It was perfect. It makes you more relatable. It makes you a person. It makes you a human being. It's the best thing I've ever seen.
I'm so glad
Lisa,
I
we
made your day.
fully endorse foot and mouth disease on this show.
And if anyone can take
endorse
it,
the foot and mouth
Matt
disease
is
on
the
this show
person
because
who Matt can take it. If anything, we do this all the time. I'm usually the one doing it to him, but I'm glad that you had an opportunity to, put a little pie in his face. But he wears it well. He's a good dude.
Amazing. That was a good laugh for all of us. It really was.
You know what? It's gonna be the gift that keeps on giving, because these Funkos, they stay on every single show. So one show, Major out of nowhere is going to start laughing for no reason
Hey,
whatsoever.
let's talk about them.
I mean, it's going
I have
down.
some
gotta
interview
ignore it now.
questions.
Now that you
So
see it,
what
I
do you-
cannot see it.
Now I have to ask questions about these. Are they sports Funkos? Are they players? What do you collect, and what's the basis of this Funko collection? Is it to resell them?
I like how serious you look too. Like she's
So-
all leaned in. She's all.
No,
You're
you know
funny.
what? It's
I like it.
just something that I enjoy. So I would say close to 95% of them are DC or Marvel type things, comic book stuff. And I grew up loving the comics and stuff like that, the old X-Men, 90s cartoons and stuff like that. Well, the one nice thing about what the Marvel universe and even DC has done recently is get shows that me and the kids can watch together. So I still get my comic book fix, but my kids can kind of enjoy it now. So we've got these Funkos that the kids kind of enjoy a little bit. They like seeing them there. I collected hockey memorabilia for the longest time, autographed jerseys, pucks, this and that. The Funko is a lot cheaper than doing that. So, I mean, it's kind of like my guilty hobby. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't gamble, so to speak, other than a little bit of fantasy football. So this is my guilty pleasure, is collecting my Funko action figures, so to speak.
Action figure?
Oh,
Hey, what does your wife
I do
think
here
about it? What
now
does your
to-
wife say about your Funkos?
Well, if you have the space,
Yeah, not a
it's
big
not a
fan.
big deal. You know, when I moved to New York, I had to get rid of 75% of my belongings to live in an apartment from 4,000 square feet going down to 1,000 square feet. So like I
Wow.
had to really make some decisions. I did keep a Matt Harvey Funko out of the box because I threw the boxes away as well. And like I didn't know you're not supposed to do that.
Rookie.
I have a Ben Simmons. I have a Joel Embiid. Those are the three I kept because I was like, these three are kind of cute. But they're cute. I think they're even cuter not in the box because they're just like little tiny figures. But they're in
They're not going to be
storage in
worth
a box
any money.
sleeping.
You're going to lose all your value with the way you're doing it.
I know. I didn't know you're supposed to keep them in the box. What's that?
A bobblehead one?
That's my Star Lord there. Little Funko.
No, they're all bobbleheads.
Yeah, it's
they
got a
all move,
bobblehead.
don't they?
See, I have no idea what they are. I call them Funkos, but yeah.
So you don't collect them?
No.
What do you collect?
Money. I try to collect as much money as possible. I like to look at it. I like to look at numbers. I don't like that. To me, that's a little sloppy. It's a little. I like to put them all in order. I like to have all the faces facing the same way, like they're in numerical order. Like I'm very. I like collecting money.
Yeah, that's a stripper's dream right there. We spend half of our night trying to make sure they're all facing the same direction, nice and straight.
And that is the interview, ladies
hang
and
on.
gentlemen. The interview is over now. Thank you, Lisa, for stopping by. We'll see you never again. Thank you very much.
I have to say, Lisa, this has been a great show. I've enjoyed it. I mean, I can't wait to do this again, whether it's on the Bettor Sports Network or right here on the Vipers Network. With that being said, Lisa, just kind of we know we can find you everywhere. I mean, whatever social media platforms out there. I mean, we got the Real Lisa Ann Experience tour going on from state to state, city to city. What's next up for Lisa Ann?
Well, I'm going to start prepping for fantasy baseball because, it's a grueling activity. You can find everything on my social media at The Real Lisa Ann. I'm the same across the board: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, my blog, thereallisaann.com. I'll be going out to Vegas again, which is pretty treacherous since Steffi Smalls and I in Vegas were very toxic together. We decided we would never go to Vegas together again. And then we found out we were going to land in Vegas the exact same day next month. So
yeah, it was an accident.
It was an accident. So we'll be out there for March Madness, but you can follow my journey on social. I share everything. I'll be doing probably skydiving again. I'm looking to heli-ski this year. Another country, that's when they drop you out of a helicopter onto the slopes and the chopper follows you along so you don't hit an avalanche. Like, I just want to do it all and have fun doing it.
Why?
It's adrenaline pinching, man. You feel like you can lift so heavy at the gym after you do that stuff. For the next 3 weeks after you take a risk like that, you go to the gym and you're like, I can do anything.
It unlocks another
Anything.
level. I got you. Okay.
With
All
that
right.
all being
Well, you
said,
guys-
for Major, for Lisa Ann, this has been another episode of Behind the Grind, Season 3, Episode 1 here on the Vipercast, presented by the Fantasy Points Media Group. And we will see you all next time when my internet is hopefully a little bit better. Take care.